welcome you to the Calaveras Board of Supervisors meeting. Please stand if you can and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You had a closed session last week under Government Code 54956.9, a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation, 2 cases resulting in no action taken in one matter. In another matter, on a 4-0 vote with Supervisor Tran abstaining, the board authorized county counsel to proceed with the claim for costs for law enforcement services provided to the 39th District Agricultural Association in connection with the further consultation. We have a closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, a conference with labor negotiators, SEIU, DSA, CCPSCA, with the Director of Human Resources, at the time resulting in no action taken. There are 5 addendums to the agenda which have been publicly noticed, all of them dealing with labor negotiations. I'd like to move to the consent agenda. These items are normally routine, non-controversial. Does any member of the board, staff, or public wish to pull an item? Yes.
I'd like to pull item number 3 for correction.
Okay. Any other items? Yes. Number 5. Okay. May I have a motion, please, on balance?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Supervisor Lewinsky, number 3.
Yes, we have an application for the Commission on Aging from Sandy Krisky from West Point, very involved in senior issues. But the appointment, my intent was to appoint her to fill out the term ending 2010, but also not to have to repeat because it's such a short time for the new year's appointment. I was hoping that the board would see fit to have it be to complete an unexpired term ending 12/31/2010 and to be appointed to the term, the 2011 term. So it would be both of those.
Does the board have support for that motion?
I can support. Does she agree with that?
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Steve does.
She did great.
I have a motion by Supervisor Lewinsky. I'm assuming that's a second by Supervisor Thomas. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5 vote. Thank you. Item number 5.
Just questioning what the amount is, what the waiver would amount to.
It's $2,200 for the road impact mitigation fee, $10,426 for the Valley Springs benefit base. Is there any other questions or comments on this item? Supervisor Zuccarelli, Supervisor Thomas.
I would like to move this item, please. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5 vote. Thank you. We stand in recess for 3 minutes.
Oh, there he is. Sorry, I didn't see you. I'd like to move to public comment, please. These are items that you may address that are not on the agenda and are under the jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors. There's 5 minutes per person.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board. I have 2 items. One may not be entirely under the jurisdiction of the board, but I'm going to raise it anyway. Recently, a cat arrived at my house with 4 kittens, which was bad enough. Now she has become pregnant and delivered 8 more kittens. So if anyone wants to have a kitten, a lot of kittens, the door's open. I'm willing to, my number's here.
Have you figured out what's causing that?
Figured out what? Well, I'm just concerned they'll become coyote food. On a far more serious note, I believe it was at the last board meeting, a candidate for Board of Supervisors, Mr. Spellman, I believe, if I heard correctly, made an accusation against all 5 members of the Board of Supervisors that you each and conjointly are conspiring to delay any labor agreement to be settled with SEIU in order to benefit a current sitting member of the board. That is clearly not true. And I believe, if I understood what he said to be correct, then I think he owes each of you an apology, and it should be public as he made the accusation. So I'm opening that up. I understand it's not entirely within your jurisdiction, but it certainly affects you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm John McCoy from Stockton, and I'm one of those nasty commercial real estate brokers. And the Bank of America owns 2 pieces of ground in I think the Sierra Business Park on Double Springs Road. The 2 parcels they've listed with me total 14 acres for $139,950. And my marching orders are to get it sold, John, because this is a branch of the bank from East Lansing, Michigan. Now, how they got this through foreclosure, I'm not quite sure. But it would give you good strategic control of the other 7 parcels, which was in, I thought it was called the Tyon Business Park, but then Annette in your planning department said, no, it's really the Sierra Business Park, and I guess the guy who developed it sold off all the property and ran off with all the money and never put in the streets and that kind of thing. And so now the banks are coming in and taking it over. And there's 2 other parcels that are going to be coming up pretty soon. But since you run everything in Calaveras County, I thought maybe you might like to buy it for a nice park or a wind farm or whatever, or hold on to it for a conservation. I've given each one of you a brochure on it. But
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Would you like Supervisor Tuffanelli to give you a call later?
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's in his area.
Is your phone number's here? It's the 601 number.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Krista Thompson, the Mental Health Services Act Coordinator for Behavioral Health Services, and I'm here for a couple reasons today. First is to let the board and the public know that this week is National Suicide Prevention Week. So we're doing a few things this week in honor of that. And one of the things that we're doing is a walkathon, which has been sponsored by our nonprofit organization that spun off from our Suicide Prevention Committee. Almost 2 years ago, Behavioral Health Services convened a Suicide Prevention Committee to address the needs of our community. And as a result of their very passionate efforts, our dedicated committee members formed a nonprofit organization called Live On. And this committee was inspired by this bracelet project, and I have some for all of you. And when we first met, one of the mothers on our committee who had lost a son to suicide said that, it would be great if we could have some sort of bracelet that had the county's hotline number on it and some sort of inspirational message like "Live On." And the committee just grabbed onto that and they said, yes, that's it. And so from there, we've now purchased about 1,500 of these. Well over 1,000 have been distributed in every high school in the county, along with training for all students who have received a bracelet and specialized training in what we call question, persuade, refer. It's kind of like the suicide prevention version of CPR. And so we've trained well over 400 people in that method as well throughout the county. So this nonprofit organization, they really wanted to focus more on community education and outreach, and will be fundraising to support those efforts beyond what the county as a department can do. And so they have decided to host their first ever suicide prevention walkathon, the Live On Walkathon. And that will be this Saturday at the Bret Hart High School track at 8 a.m. Registration begins at 8 a.m. and there's some really awesome raffle prizes. So we invite anyone who's interested to come on down to the high school this Saturday at 8, and you can walk, you can sponsor a walker, or you can just purchase some raffle tickets because the prizes are really awesome. And we want to thank everyone who has donated to this cause and thank the board for your ongoing support the past 2 years for this initiative. I have goodies.
Krista, we have a Juvenile Justice Commission, and I see our Chief Probation Officer in the back. Maybe we can connect with the Juvenile Justice Commission, too. Thank you.
Actually,
thank you very much.
You're welcome. And sorry, our Chief Probation Officer is on our Suicide Prevention Committee, along with several other staff throughout the county, and we want to thank all of them for their dedicated efforts and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and the rest of the board members. My name is Ron Randall, and this is Gene Corton, and we're residents of Valley Springs. And we're here today to submit a revised draft and public response and answers for the town of Valley Springs. I would like to thank Supervisor Toffanelli for the idea of this committee. I would also like to thank all the members of this committee who gave up 4 months of their lives working on this plan. This plan was put together by a 9-person advisory committee who represent different groups, all of whom were very, very dedicated and each bringing varied talents to the table throughout all the meetings. Other than some guidelines that we were given by the planning department, we received no help from the county. The committee paid no entity or person any funds for this, and this plan cost the taxpayers $0. The expenses were covered by the dedicated citizens on this committee who met 2 or 3 times a week for approximately 4 months after working an 8-hour workday. I am proud of their accomplishments. The only criticism and remarks came from members or affiliates of myvalleysprings.com, and this plan represents the wishes of the Valley Springs residents. Because the general plan is not yet adopted, we cannot have internal consistency. When more information is available, this committee could make some changes. The committee tried to keep costs down for the county. We tried to keep costs down for housing. We tried to keep costs down for commercial development and make ample space for job creation and a tax base. With expanding existing boundaries only minimal, respectively submitted by the Citizens Committee. And we thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Give it to Carol.
Hold on a second.
Well, I don't know if members come up here to involve in it.
a lot of time in a short period of time to produce this. And they worked very diligently and very hard. They did a lot of research into producing this document. They tried to put something in here for everybody that feeds everybody that lives in the Hot Springs area within the boundaries of this. And I think they did a very, very good job. And I commend all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Someone has the floor, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. I'm Tanya Dawson from Burson, and I'm a representative from the Constitution Group, and I wanted to read my minority report on the Valley Springs Community Plan. On behalf of the Constitution Group, I would like to thank Supervisor Toffanelli for including me as a representative from our Constitution Group to be a part of the committee to update the Valley Springs Community Plan. The sustainable development principles in the proposed general plan are based in the quest for increased government control over individual daily lives and business. Centralized planning of how others are to use and develop their property and businesses tends to be an authoritarian approach to planning and can have many unintended consequences. In spite of the oppressive language in the general plan update, the committee made a valiant effort to protect property rights. The last draft of the Valley Springs Community Plan that I was given, the committee's concepts that were in disagreement with the U.S. Constitution seemed to be primarily in the issues and goals, policies, and implementations, where in some cases fundamental human rights have been forfeited. Specifically, it's not the government's role to provide affordable housing choices, public transportation, or public health care. Public transportation, affordable housing choices, public health care, walking trails, bike paths, open space, wildlife habitat, a rural way of life, and other provisions are noble goals, and those who value those aims can dedicate their life's work to those ends. However, to force some to work for the ideology of others is wrong. The best way to provide for these amenities is by agreement with the property owners and volunteers, not force of law. The plan uses the benign-sounding word encourage, but enforcing policies in the general plan requires the police power of government, and we must be careful to protect the liberties of the citizens. The alternate plan developed by COG infringes on the property rights and individual rights to a far greater extent than does the plan submitted by Gary Toffanelli's committee. In America, our inherent rights to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness are unalienable. In other words, not subject to the whims of government officials or popular majorities. Our founding fathers wrote a constitution to establish a government that would receive limited power from the consent of the people, and that limited power it received was for the express purpose of securing our inherent rights. When groups of people are given power to make decisions for individuals, no matter how altruistic, there is oppression. The American form of government is based on the freedom of individuals to make the important choices in their lives. History has proven that authoritarian forms of government lead to poverty and tyranny.
Thank you.
Good morning, Michael Wietrich. As a member of the committee, and I just want to make a very important clarification based on the statement that was just read. We discussed many things while we were going through updating that plan, and it was brought up to us many times that what we were doing was potentially in violation of the Constitution. The question was asked at that time, and many times during the time that we were working on that project,
where exactly it was violating the Constitution, how it was violating the Constitution.
Mike, can you hold on one second? Can you identify yourself, please?
I did. Mike Lewichik, when I first walked up here.
Thank you.
The point I'm making is that we asked repeatedly that when the phrase was put out there that that's a violation of the Constitution, we asked who it was in the room that was a constitutional scholar or a legal representative of the Constitution, and nobody in that room was that. It was simply an opinion being given by somebody who is studying the document. And like we all know, that document can't even get straightened out by the Supreme Court. So I would like you to keep that in your mind when the time comes for you guys to decide whether you're going to support this document or not, that the reference to it being unconstitutional is simply an opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Valentino Pacetti. My wife and I are pretty new here in the Valley Springs area, and we were asked to be on this committee. And as it turns out, we were very honored we were on this committee. This committee was, as you can tell just by the people that talked on this committee, was put on by a good, diverse amount of people. They're great people. We met so many great people here. But everything was thought of and looked at, talked about through our brains, but our decisions were ultimately guided by our hearts in this thing. It was ultimately guided that way. Everything, and the reason why I say that is because every decision was always for the people in this committee. Now, people can take my words out of context, but this comes from the heart, comes straight shot. They don't mess around. Everything was dedicated to the people on this. So, good, bad, indifferent, this document, this plan, was made up from the heart. And that, the morality that went into this is supreme, 100%. Whether, what document should be this, what document is that, what is legal in the Constitution over this or not, it comes from the heart what it is. People will interpret it the way they want to. And you can get the most perfect document. I like people like Tanya. She writes the Minority Report. As perfect as we try to get this plan congregated the way we did, we still need people to help with our imperfections, because nothing's going to be perfect because none of us are. That's why I like Tanya. That's why I like people who can still give us constructive criticism, and we're open-minded enough and biased enough to take that and wonder if it's for the people. What plan we should take, this one or that one. Whichever one represents the people, that's the plan. No matter what. No matter who's involved, and taking yourselves out of the equation and just looking at them biased 100%, and which one represents the people is going to be the right plan, no matter what the outcome. But thank you very much for allowing me to be on this committee. My wife and I both, Peggy. It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacetti.
Good morning, Excellencies. My name is Peter Reyes. I'm from Valley Spring, and I like to ditto Tanya's comments. And as far as some other comments were made, don't worry about the Constitution, just worry about life, liberty, and property, and how it affects the individual. Now, on a friendlier note, well, I'd like to request that in sometime in the near future, you might want to consider to avoid the appearance and actual violation of the Brown Act of your activities outside of this chamber. But just, you might want to check it out. The other thing I'd like to bring out is that on our clerk recorder's website, on the very bottom, there's a little section pertaining to your activities outside of this chamber. And when somebody clicks on it, to fully appreciate your activities, it's a blank. And when it's a blank, silence talks louder than words. I'd like to bring it to your attention that while this county has one of the highest unemployment rate in the neighborhood, and we've been getting less and less funding for the county activities, to put it in perspective, as a citizen, I have a hard time appreciating your membership in some of these institutions where you spend over $10,000 for membership. That's kind of questionable. Anything from $1,000 to $10,000 of membership. Because I would like to be a receptionist of the great knowledge and wisdom you acquire in some of your travel in behalf of the county. I want to fully appreciate what knowledge and wisdom you acquire going to Washington, what you learned, who you learned it from, and stopping off at Gettysburg or Malibu, so we can really appreciate all the extra work and time you take so you can share your wisdom and knowledge that are acquired in your travels. So I would really request that if you have a chance, maybe you can get that website up to date and put something in it instead of just a big blank. There's a headline, you click it on, totally blank. So those are basically the two things. If you don't worry about Constitution, worry about the little minor details, life, liberty, and property, and how it's affecting individuals. I also want to thank you for, because I know you're so busy and you don't have the funds to do it, that you kind of give your duties, your fiduciary duties, to other counties. I don't know how it's going to affect the unemployment in here, but the only employment that you're helping right now is unelected, unaccountable employees of a different county. So when you ask the other county to hire people to do the job that you assumed, and you're abdicating your responsibility and accountability, to me it's kind of questionable. So please consider that also. Thank you very much. You have a nice day.
Thank you for your feedback, Mr. Race. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to address before the board?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Josie Martinez-Ornum, and I am the Program Director for the upcoming clinic known as Mountain Oak Health Centers, which is located at 55-6 Mountain Ranch Road here in San Andreas. My purpose this morning is to introduce Mountain Oak Health Centers, a nonprofit clinic. The idea for this clinic came to four local citizens who are deeply concerned about the growing number of people without access to health care services. The rising cost of health care and the downturn of the economy have left many of our friends and neighbors with no alternative for their medical care. Based on the report from the Population Research Institute, University of Wisconsin, which was dated February 2010, Calaveras County ranked 40th of the 56 counties in clinical care, which is an access to care measure. In 2005 data, the percent of the population under 65 years old without health insurance is 19% in Calaveras County compared to 21% statewide. I am sure with today's numbers, it is much higher than that. For clarification purposes, we are not a free clinic, nor are we an urgent care. We have applied to the state of California to be licensed as a community primary care clinic and be certified as a rural health clinic under Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, a federal agency that administers these programs. In a community clinic, any charges to the patient shall be based on the patient's ability to pay, utilizing a sliding scale fee. In addition, we will be providing low-cost laboratory fees, and we are in the process of developing partnerships with local pharmacies for our patients to obtain affordable medications. Mountain Oak Health Center is currently funded and run by donors and volunteers. We also have upcoming fundraisers to provide us with funding. Those are a golf tournament at La Contenta, a Halloween costume ball at Preston Castle, and a 2000 calendar featuring men and women in public service. Our opening date is projected October 2010, which is dependent on the final approval for our licensing and certification status. In obtaining licensing and certification, there are many layers of approval. We have successfully passed 2 of the 4 segments. In closing, I would like to thank each and every one of you the opportunity to introduce Mountain Oak Health Centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you tell us where where is it going to be located?
It's right at the corner of Mountain Ranch Road next to CalWorks, 556 Mountain Ranch.
Across the street from...
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And the date of your golf tournament?
October 9th.
October 9th.
Yes. Thank you.
Are there any other comments on items not on the agenda and under the jurisdiction of the board?
Good morning. Marty Crane, Valley Springs, really Rancho. I came with something specific to talk to you about, but I have to address a few other things as well now that I'm here, so I will try to be concise. I definitely want to get to this. First of all, again, the innuendos that people throw out here, unfounded accusations. It's like, I don't know, Brown Act, I don't know. It's like, you know what, if you can't come forth with positive, factual information, then please don't assault us. Using the words that I heard this morning, nothing is perfect, it's a work in progress. These are all the things that the Valley Springs Community Plan, working through COG because the county was not able to step up as the lead agency for several years. These are the words that were constantly used. It's a work in progress. It's a draft. Come, everybody, help, help. We begged people, come, help, be part of the process. And so I love all this energy. I just wish that it could be part of the process and not undermined and just throw it out and start all over with a tiny little committee that I also heard them say representing the people. I want to know who are the people, you know, that they're representing. And also groups of people making decisions for and on behalf of others is tantamount to oppression. This small little committee made decisions for everybody else without any consultation from anyone else. They finally, we insisted that you've got to vet it to the public. You've got to be more transparent. You got to talk to the people. So finally they had a meeting. They put flyers on the doors in Valley Springs on Friday, and on the same day, this is on the 23rd, I believe, and on that same Friday, an article came out in the Valley Springs News. I don't sit down with the Valley Springs News until Friday night or Saturday morning, maybe, if I have time. The meeting was Saturday morning. You could see what they had at 9, and the meeting was a couple hours later. There were limited people there because people didn't know about it. And but I will say that there were 2 people that live in Valley Springs, other than the committee, that came. One at my encouragement, and another man that showed up, and he says, "Who are you people? What are you doing to us?" He had no idea. He says, "I found this flyer on my door." So this is the kind of outreach that is not, anyway, there's been no outreach. And when we showed up there, there were like maybe 3 or 4 copies, and we were supposed to absorb all of this and make our comments. You can't absorb, sit down, and all these people trying to read the same. It just doesn't work. I have got to address this. Anyway, and I would also like to say I would appreciate it if people would stop assuming that no one knows the Constitution but them. I'm almost 62. I've been hearing the Constitution for years. And I would just appreciate it if we would be given a little credit for knowing a little something about our own Constitution. This letter was provided to our supervisors and others, I believe, by Dave Tanner. I'm very concerned about this. I'm sorry if I run it a little bit over. He writes this letter. I think I'm going to have to paraphrase it a little bit. He says he's sending this letter in disgust. We've been working for some time now trying to work with Delta College to bring a campus to Valley Springs or to Calaveras. Apparently for the last 5 years, Calaveras has been paying $2 million to the Delta College District, and we're not getting anything. And so now, recently, Terry Tanner, who works at the county, or at the school district, she works with the students to help them get into college and whatever it takes, and the papers, the testing, and whatever. They could not find room for 60 of our students. $10 million later, I'm going 60 students, you know. But Delta College passed a bond to build new campuses, including one in Calaveras County, which everyone's aware of. There's a link on this, and I have extra copies here where you can go in and see what their plans are, which includes a Lodi campus. We'd like you to review this list and just think, if there's some places where you might, I know you disagree, excuse me, but I have the floor, where they might be able to shave some of the information, some of the dollars, to provide something for us here in Calaveras. They are spending $3,329,597 for a focused landscape plan. For a planetarium, it's $2,050,000. To renovate the bathrooms, it's $5,624,320. $624,320. To redesign the traffic circulation, it's $7,543,619.
Marty, we all got this.
Okay, but I think the public needs to know that they're also $1,850,000 for an enhanced campus entry. Yet they have no room for 60 students this year. And also, I don't think you know this, but there was an English 101 class. And so when the kids got all ready, they got their testing or whatever they had to do and all the stuff that they had to do, there were only 14 days notice from the time they were noticed to the end of the application period, or whatever you call it. And so there was no time for them to apply for that. So there's a meeting tonight at Delta College. I encourage everyone to go. And we're already paying for this. They're not going to address it until about 2025, at which time they will have received our $50 million and used it to build Stockton.
Calaveras has been very active. Supervisor Claudino was, Supervisor Tuffanelli is.
Well,
we
they're
totally.
We need help.
Okay.
Morning, Board of Supervisors. Andy Ballantyne, District 5. I got it right this time, Marita.
What's that, your name?
Yeah. I forgot to say who I was last time, so I got it right this time. Oh, okay. I'd like to take the opportunity this morning to thank the committee that wrote the Valley Springs plan. It was a lot of work on their part, and the document that was produced by this committee was exceptional. Actually, what the committee accomplished, they wrote a $350,000 plan at no expense to the taxpayer. I think that in itself is just tremendously commendable. They also, instead of just writing a plan and just throwing it out there, like what was done with myvalleysprings.com originally, whenever they wrote the grant, they never asked anybody if this is what they wanted or if the grant should be written. I think that that's the wrong way to handle things in this country. You know, they talk about the review of the Valley Springs plan. MyValleySprings.com is a group that does not hold public meetings. They don't allow the public to come to their meetings, nor do they tell the public when their meetings are. I don't think that that's the way that an entity should be operating that is so involved in community plans and other things in the community. I think they ought to be more upfront. They never ask the people anything. All they do is they meet, they come up with ideas, or else they tear another plan apart and then they throw it out to the public. All they've been through the whole process of the committee that was doing the plan is like a pain in the neck. They did everything possible to make it as tough as possible to produce a plan. And I don't think that that's cooperating with the community. I don't think that's cooperating with the citizens in the community. These people are just throwing stuff out there along with their partner, Seekoff, and they spent $252,000. And finally, after 2 years or 3 years, they finally came out with a plan. In my view, the only reason they came out with a plan was to keep from paying back the grant money that they got. And that's basically, I think, what the reason for the consensus plan that's out right now. There was more than one review held by the committee on the Valley Springs Community Plan. There was quite a few meetings held. They're holding one meeting, and it's either like it or lump it. Their plan is like 146 pages, and you got like a little bit of time to go through and digest all these 146 pages and write comments or whatever. The big difference between the consensus plan and the committee's plan is the fact that the committee's plan is what the people in Valley Springs want.
Mr. Valentine, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, their plan is what they want. And so I would tell everybody, adopt the committee's plan for Valley Springs because that's what the people want.
Thank you for your comments.
I'm Clyde from Valley Springs, and I guess I'm one of the people everyone's talking about here. I own approximately 12 properties in the Valley Springs area. No one from any committee has ever asked me anything. I've been here for 32 years. I probably attended more supervisors' meetings than most of the supervisors here has, except for probably Tom. But I did attend supervisors' meeting before Tom was a supervisor. So I wish people would just quit, saying what I want, and maybe someone ask me what I want. Now, I have asked my supervisor, Gary, and he was very kind, and he talked to me, and he knows sort of what I want. But the committees has never talked to me about anything. And I figure a person that has some property and has been there as long as I have should have at least the respect to have been asked before they come up here and tell me what I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clapp.
Good morning. My name's Bonnie Newman. I'm from Double Springs, and I'm trying to save money too. I have developed, separate from SEIU-UHW, which is the Home Care Providers Union, separate from the Public Authority, and separate from the IHSS Advisory Board, something that benefits care providers. You'll see a calendar of events. We want to produce this each and every month and mail it to providers, IHSS home care providers in Calaveras County. And secondly, we developed a list of resources that benefit care providers. Missing from this list was on the back a list of the IHSS advisory board members, all of whom wish to remain confidential, even though they are responsible for $53,000 a year. And also, I didn't put down the Calaveras Board of Supervisors, and you're not confidential, but you will be on this list. Also, the people who negotiated the home care provider contract this year, we wish not to remain confidential. By the way, we ratified the contract with Calaveras County. The home care workers voted last Monday and Tuesday to accept a one-year extension of our present contract, with the hope that next year, with a new regime in Sacramento, we might be able to negotiate a better contract for home care providers. What I've done, without the help of anyone, was donate stamps, 3 secretarial services to put this little flyer together. With the help of home care providers, we get paid $10 an hour. We've been able to generate enough funds to pay for 1 month's mailing to Valley Springs only. That's because I only donate $50 a month to the cause. I would encourage each one of you supervisors to look into your contingency fund to see if you can help us continue to put this in the mail, help provide fingerprinting for the care providers who are unable to pay their $50 initially to get their fingerprints done. Now, I noticed on the agenda today we have somebody being appointed to the advisory committee, and I will save my comments about the advisory committee for that time. But with this little paper of resources, I've consolidated what I've been able to acquire about 50 different organizations in the community. All are available. It's all out there, but people have to drive around and get it. Now it's right here in one little paper. Some numbers are missing. Any additions are welcome at any time. If you feel, we forgot to mention some kind of support group that you know about, please let us know. We want this to be as comprehensive as possible. Also, we are offering assistance with notice of action hour appeals. That is, when people have acquired a certain amount of services from IHSS and suddenly they get an evaluation and those hours are cut, we have assistance in helping people file those appeals. And I think that's it for now, unless you have any suggestions right off the bat about what I've handed out to you.
No, it's very nice, Bonnie. Thank you.
Okay. And anytime you feel like donating, we've already gotten about $30 from $10 an hour home care providers.
Thank you. Does anyone else have an item they'd like to discuss? Not on the agenda. You've had your 5 minutes.
I didn't have 5 minutes. I had one. I just wanted to say just something very briefly. I just wanted to personally thank Mr. Topanelli. I'm a member of the board of directors for the Veterans Memorial District in Valley Springs, and he has gone over and above and out of his way to help us move that project forward. And the way it looks right now, we should have a tractor out there moving dirt within about a week. So I just personally wanted to publicly thank you for all the work that you put into making that happen.
Thanks, Mike. You're welcome.
Okay.
Joe Kelly. 2 weeks ago, you discussed and approved the jail project paperwork. While doing so, you dismissed and disrespected the sheriff-elect under the guise of two separate projects, jail and sheriff's office, or administration building, as some of you call it. During the break, I presented packet information to the CAO and Chair Callaway in Section 5 budget classification schedules, cash match, architectural $2.4 million, CEQA $78,400, and construction management $1.7 million. My expression to the CAO and Chair Callaway, once cash matched Measure J funding is commingled, the two projects are married, meaning the whole project is up for discussion. No longer discussion separation exists. I asked 3 Article 4 participating county obligation paragraph G operation of jail questions. Chair Callaway brushed me off. Chair Callaway, can you guarantee that everyone in this county that is responsible to repay Measure J bond money is knowledgeable of the conditions applied to this project? Now on to another subject. The study session 2 weeks ago regarding the alternatives for access road alignment for the Calaveras County Criminal Justice Center. May I suggest you request the consultant to set up temporary markings for a guided walkthrough of the proposed alternatives for your benefit before the item returns to the board, just like a government contractor pre-bid session or pre-bid inspection session. It might make your decision a little bit easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Anyone else? I'd like to move to item 11, a resolution appointing one in-home supportive service senior advocate to the IHSS Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Mary Sawicki, Director of Calaveras Works and Human Services. We are here to request the board consider appointing Joyce Carrillo to the IHSS Advisory Board for the term of October 2010 through December 2014. Joyce has a long history of providing legal services as an attorney for disability claims and senior issues. She has applied to be a member of the board. She would be one of the individuals representing community-based organizations advocating for seniors and dependent adults.
Is there any questions or comments from the board? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
I have a question. Bonnie Newman, Double Springs. This is a 7-member board. Appointing Joyce Carrillo would make it an 8-member board. Is this a replacement for somebody on the board, or is this an expanded board? And then I would ask also, since this is a 7-member board, do you all recall voting to limit this board to 7 members? And if so, are you willing to vote and expand this board to 8 members or expand it to 11 members, which it originally was? I don't have a problem with Ms. Carrillo. I think any new blood is good on this board. I'd like to see some of the old blood gone, totally replaced with new blood. A whole lot of the program should be replaced with new blood. But my question right now is, for this replacement or addition, how do we explain the 7-member board?
Thank you.
Mary Sawicki, Calaveras Works. The law allows the IHSS Advisory Committee to be up to 11 representatives. In the past, it's my understanding there was some difficulty obtaining representation from all of the areas, and so at one point it was recommended to reduce down to a 7-member. There's been more interest in people joining it, and we're moving it back up. But the actual number is up to 11. Up to. It's not,
Thank you.
There's not a minimum or a max. The max is just 11.
Supervisor Walensky.
I think the difficulty with complying with the requirement had to do with the number of consumers that were on the advisory committee. The state requirement is that 50% or more of the body should be consumers, people who are receiving the service. And when the number of consumers fell below a certain number, we were then out of compliance with that obligation. Recently, I believe another consumer or maybe 2 have been added to this committee, therefore allowing it to re-expand. I don't believe the board, acting as the IHSS governing board, made any decisions to limit it to 7. It was simply the state requirement would not allow more than 7 unless more consumers came up. So we are expanding. We want to encourage people to be engaged in this. It's one of the very few services that actually have people who are providing the services and people who are receiving the services as key members of the advisory committee that should be setting policy and priorities and recommending those to the board. So I think the expansion is good, but it has to be done consistent with state law, which is what this move accomplishes.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Just a comment. Until the board expanded itself to include 7 providers, there was very little encouragement for anyone to get involved. In fact, there was almost discouragement from people getting involved. And as you know, I have been reaming these guys out for about a year now. It would be my intent to sit on this board because I think I've got a lot of good ideas, plus I've got the energy. I would just like to say that even though I have indicated a lot of interest in this board, I have not been encouraged or allowed to participate on any level except as a public until this point. So if you're truly thinking of expanding this board, right now it won't be expanded because now you've got 50%. And if I were to get involved, I would be another member of the public, not the consumer group, which needs to be upped as any addition to the public has to be equaled or more than equaled by the consumer population. So I just have a problem with that. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that. You certainly are invited at any time, just like anyone else, to apply to the board. Go ahead and fill out an application. We did check. You have yet to fill out an application. Please do. And anyone else who meets any of the requirements can, and when there are openings, we'd be more than happy to consider those individuals.
Thank you, Ms. Wicke. Does anyone else have a question or comment on this? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.